Hello and welcome to this introduction of State and Local Government and Politics, PLS 136 at Central Virginia Community College. My name is Jim Toot and I'm an Associate Professor of Political Science and your instructor for the course. State and local government are the most visible levels of government in the United States. From traffic lights, streets and highways, water and sewer services, K-12 education, higher education, parks, mass transit, law enforcement, utilities, communications, and mass media, and many other activities, state and local governments are either directly involved in offering these services or in regulating organizations hired to provide these services. While state and local governments are the most visible and potentially the most important for most citizens when compared to the federal government, the generally low level of interest in and knowledge concerning these governments and the often high levels of cynicism regarding their leaders among citizens is of great concern to many political scientists. State and local governments currently face many ongoing and numerous new challenges that complicate their task of sustaining current public services and programs. As the United States has developed from a rural and agricultural-based economy in the 1700s to an industrial powerhouse in the 1800s, and now as it becomes increasingly a post-industrial society with a knowledge-based economy and most citizens employed in service sector jobs, state and local governments have had to cope with a wide array of socioeconomic and political changes. Post-industrial societies such as the United States, Canada, and the nations of the European Union, Australia, and Japan are characterized by the following traits: economic dominance of the service sector over those of manufacturing and agriculture, complex nationwide communications networks, a high degree of economic activity based on an educated workforce employing scientific knowledge and technology in their work, a high level of public mobilization in society, including the rise of historically new social causes such as the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the anti-nuclear movement, the anti-globalization movement, the environmental movement, population and employment growth in urban areas and the subsequent decline in rural areas, and historically unprecedented societal affluence. Because of such immediate survival and infrastructure concerns, American state and local governments, which were generally small in scale and limited in capacity, accorded little attention to such contemporary issues as environmental protection or other higher order needs such as gender equity and global economic justice. Higher order needs is a theory developed by Abraham Maslow related to motivation, showing how, when lower needs such as physiological safety, love, and belonging are met, higher needs such as esteem and finally self-actualization become attainable. As the United States moved into extensive mining and natural resource extraction and the large-scale fabrication and manufacturing of durable goods, many issues relating to industrialization became important for American state and local governments. Highly troublesome issues such as unsafe workplaces, unrestrained child labor exploitation, uncontrolled urbanization, inadequate local transportation systems, poor public health services, toxic waste disposal, and inadequate public education systems arose as the industrialization process proceeded. Issues regarding water resource protection and conservation, smart growth, and the environmental stewardship-oriented land use practices, the enforcement of energy-efficient building standards, the implementation of air quality protection measures, the reduction of the impact of carbon emissions on global climate change are all directly involved in promoting sustainable economic development in state and local governments in the United States today. Smart growth is a theory for urban growth and planning that attempts to concentrate growth in the center of a city, thereby avoiding urban sprawl. Demographic changes. People are living longer than ever before, a fact which affects a host of government services, including increasing costs associated with retirement pensions, health care, and other social services such as independent, assisted, and dependent living arrangements for the aged, increasing demand for senior citizen recreational and leisure activities, higher rates of political participation in state and local affairs by senior citizens when compared to younger cohorts, which means the public policy preferences of seniors may disproportionately affect state and local community decisions. Large-scale immigration from Mexico, Central America, and South America. Such immigration creates new public issues for many communities, including the need for bilingual government services in education, justice, and social spheres, new cultural diversity programs, new approaches to housing and transportation services, new types of law enforcement issues arising from claims of biased policing, and so forth. Hispanics or Latinos are now the largest minority group in the United States, and their proportion of the population continues to grow at a rapid rate. Increasing presence of women in the workforce and in state and local government leadership roles. This enhanced presence of women in the workforce and in leadership roles has led to increased emphasis on such issues as family leave policies, daycare provisions, equal employment opportunity, comparable work compensation policies, sexual harassment, and domestic violence. Due to a variety of factors, including rising educational levels as well as a higher percentage of women working outside the household, average family size is declining, potentially leading to more high-density residential areas, townhouses, condominiums, and so forth, being created in urban areas. This type of residential settlement pattern places different demands on existing state and local services infrastructure than is associated with the traditional suburban sprawl pattern of housing settlement. The United States has been transformed from a rural nation of 3.92 million people in 1790, our first census of population, to an urban society of 331 million people as of 2020. After a relatively slow rate of urban growth in the 18th century, the pace of urbanization picked up dramatically during the 19th and early 20th centuries. During the 20th century, the urban population continued to increase, and suburban areas started to develop and grow as well. During the 1980s and 1990s, a substantial number of rural counties in the United States lost population, while urban and suburban counties grew at a rapid rate. The migration of people from rural to urban/suburban counties was driven by the most highly educated or skilled younger cohorts leaving rural areas to seek jobs or further education in urban core areas. These migration patterns have led to the acquisition of increased economic and political power on the part of urban and suburban centers vis-a-vis rural areas, and contributed to the political and economic decline of communities whose local economies are based in the rural periphery. Urbanization has a pronounced social, economic, and environmental impact on communities throughout the country. A visitor to a major city in the United States will likely experience traffic congestion arising from a love of automobiles, be greeted by smoggy air and haze in the summertime, witness municipal sewage being dumped into rivers, and be shocked by the enormous amounts of trash produced by our mass consumption society. Suburban sprawl has led to the growth of geographically vast metropolitan areas where cities have literally grown into each other, often swallowing up prime agricultural areas and natural landscapes in the process. These vast metropolitan areas universally succumb to serious traffic congestion and harmful air quality problems, not to mention the dependence they breed for the consumption of great amounts of petroleum products. Continuing growth and geographical dispersion of urban and suburban areas in the United States, along with the decline in natural resource and agricultural sectors of the economy, has led to the service sector, employment accounting for over 70% of the U.S. economy. Unemployment and poverty rates are typically higher and wages lower in the rural periphery when compared to the metropolitan areas. Substantial economic decline in rural communities can contribute to a felt imperative among its residents to increase natural resource extraction in order to sustain community viability, while continued growth in the urban service industry creates a contrary imperative towards non-material uses of natural environments, such as recreation and the provision of wildlife habitat. Other issues often confronting communities arising from urbanization include escalating land prices due to the gentrification of neighborhoods, that is, the displacement of low-income residents living in inexpensive housing with high-income residents living in high-cost housing. Traffic congestion leading to demands for more freeways, parking lots, and possibly mass transportation such as buses and light rail systems. More expensive construction costs due to the development in densely populated areas. More demands for inner-city services, which could include social, educational, public health, public safety, recreational, and open space and economic security issues. In Part 2, we will discuss globalization and economic change.